There was a perception, I think it still exists, but it was more widespread in the 1970s, that you don't need to do anything for the smart kids, because the smart kids will do fine no matter what you do, and the school doesn't need to focus their resources in that direction. So my parents just wanted to try to start that conversation.
Believe it or not, I was shy in 7th grade. So when I came to the Blank Summer Institute, I started evolving into who I am today, and I became goal-oriented. I was surrounded by people who had the same goal as I did, as be successful in school and just carry on the legacy of the Belin-Blank Center.
Mike Blank's father was the one who started one of the first movie theaters in the city of Des Moines, but Mike Blank's innovation was adding popcorn to the movie experience, because he developed a way for the popcorn not to have an unpleasant burnt taste and smell.
When you think about movies, popcorn is almost synonymous with going to the movies. And actually one time I was watching AMC, and there was Mike giving an award to Jimmy Stewart. And so, he was someone that had that much public exposure. Jackie is one of those people that seemed to know everybody in the state of Iowa on a first-name basis. She cared about people. Her willingness to give of her resources and of herself was something.
When my parents moved to Des Moines in the 1950s, they became pretty fast friends with the Blanks within a few years. And my mother was no longer teaching after about the mid to late 1950s, but she did continue an interest in education.
Mike and Jackie Blank, along with David and Connie Belin, were very, very important philanthropists. And anybody who goes to Des Moines will recognize the Blank name all over the place in the area of Des Moines.
But on the gifted and talented education, I think it was that idea that, my parents really saw that as an unmet need. My father had, in the 1960s, had spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. He had worked as a counsel to the Warren Commission. By the time that work was finished and he was back in Iowa full-time, my mother had been appointed to the Board of Regents, and it was in the late 1970s that interest in gifted education and making something happen in gifted education in Iowa really accelerated.
I will never forget, meeting with the Belins and Blanks. It was at Mike's office in Des Moines, and it stands out because we had tuna fish sandwiches, which I love, and so does Mike. And we just sat around, kind of doing two things at once. In one way, getting to know one another and kind of hearing each other out. And then number two, we were talking about the possibility of what could we do in Iowa. They were really dedicated to doing something in Iowa that would be very distinct, very groundbreaking.
When it started, I remember my father talking about starting with the teachers, because one teacher who's trained to help work with gifted children can work with many children over the course of his career and possibly influence colleagues either in the same school or in the same school district.
The vision that I have is of these teachers who are so interested in learning about gifted and talented students because they just didn't have any opportunities prior to this fellowship program. And then they got this material and they saw how the material really applied to their classrooms and how they could use it right away. And so my recollection was just of like, there's so much energy.
We've had Korean educators come as a group, and Koreans have such a reputation of providing, they outscore us on international tests, and it's a little bit like, why are you coming to us when you do so well? But one of the main things they were interested in here is creativity. And so we would invite Claire Baldas to do presentations. One of them involved a piece of yarn, and two individuals come together and their wrists are joined by these pieces of yarn, and how are they supposed to disentangle themselves? And I can just see these individuals, trying to do this, and they had so much fun with us.
I know that the research is important. I know that the kind of behind-the-scenes things are important, but when you actually see those kids with smiles on their faces, with a sense of belonging, with a sense of, I fit in here for the first time in their lives, that's pretty cool. And that can be second graders, that can be ninth graders, that can be college students that have that kind of aha moment when they come to the Belin-Blank Center.
So our student programming began in 1988, and to me it's really great that we actually still have on campus today the same program that was in place in 1988. However, that program has expanded both upward and downward. So we have programming from early elementary grades all the way up through high school.
Sometimes these students are incredibly bright but have not had anyone tell them that before because of the challenges that get in their way.
I've learned so much from just working with these amazing kids who have these incredible strengths, but also things they struggle with. It helps me put things in perspective in my own life.
I started working at the Belin-Blank Center in 1995. I was one of 3 new staff members. At the time I was hired, there were 5, I believe, full-time staff members. I remember we had our staff meetings at a small round table in a conference room. Since that time, we've grown to up to 25 full-time staff members across 2 floors in a brand new building.
First time I walked into the center, I was 17 years old, and I actually came here through our NACE program, which allows students to come to college a year early. I came here as a student. I worked as an undergraduate assistant for the Institute for Research and Policy on Acceleration, which deals with academic acceleration or speeding up the pace of students learning to kind of match what they need.
In the past several years, we've been able to engage with artistically talented students through programming, and that's a very unique aspect of our center when you compare it to other traditional gifted education centers. And we wouldn't have been able to offer those arts programs without a generous gift from Mary Bucksbaum-Scanlon.
The arts are an important piece to any domain development, whether it's in mathematics, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in science. Creativity is not just inherent to the arts. It's inherent to all areas.
When I started in 2006, A Nation Deceived had been out for 2 years, and it was already a big hit in the gifted and talented community. The website has over 4 million hits. A Nation Deceived has been downloaded online several 100,000 times, and we've given out, I believe, more than 50,000 print copies. So it's been a really important publication for the center and for the gifted and talented community.
These are life-changing experiences for these kids, whether they're real young or college age. The kinds of things that we're able to do here with them, literally, it's life-changing. Former director Nick, when he hired me, Nick Langelo said to me, "Now when you quit having fun, let me know." Because that was a very important part of working here, is actually enjoying what you do and growing with the programs.
Jackie Blank used to refer to the center as her happy place. And so I think that the first word that comes to mind is that we're a really happy place. And we're happy because we're trying new things. I like to say yes. I like to have people come to me with new ideas. I oftentimes will come with ideas of my own. And I like the synergy that makes us grow and do new things. I also love that we have a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility. And I would say that that's because we have a really firm foundation upon which we're built. And that foundation goes back to what the philanthropists, what our benefactors gave to us when we first started out. And that was, here's an idea, take it, run with it, see what you can do with it. Jackie Blank said, we tossed a small pebble and it made a big splash. And indeed, we're still splashing away.